I went to national once before, and other than that, I've always struggled with some knee issues. So I was out, I came back in, and when I went to the World Championships, some more of the guys from the States I knew, but outside of that, other than the team that we went with, I didn't know anyone.
And you were in the service too. Were you in the service at that time, or did you?
No. That was after the service. I got out of the service back in '81.
Wow. And did you travel like internationally when you were in the service?
No.
So this was a huge trip to Japan.
Oh, are you kidding me?
I mean,
no.
Talk about like a great opportunity in life,
right?
This
was an amazing opportunity. I mean, to win I won the pose down for New York had this thing where they select an athlete to go to the nationals, and if you win the pose down in New York, you get your expense paid to go to the nationals. That's how I got to the nationals, and then to go to the nationals and then selected to go to the World Championships and go there as one. That's a dream come true.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. So we work with the former 212 Mr. Olympia Kamal El-Garni, current runner-up, next year's Mr. Olympia 212, hopefully. Kamal was like a IFBB World Championship guy his whole career. Coming out of the Middle East, they see the pros a little different, and he's been in that show, many a time.
Right.
I think it's too bad that we've lost those big international competitions in the shuffle of everything. So, well, when did you get into the sport? Like, I know you, you really are a backbone of the production team for the Arnold Classic. Were you with the Arnold Classic team since day one, or?
Actually, I came in on 91. 91.
That's good. So I heard the 1990 Arnold was the worst one ever.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you would, or actually you waited for Mike to open the door and then you came through.
So what happened was I went to the first two, and I was in awe. I mean, we only had like 100, 150 booths, but it was like something I've never experienced before. And I said, I saw a guy who trained in my gym that was my friend. I said, how can I get involved in this? And he said, come to this meeting. And basically, I came to a meeting, and I met Mr. Lormer, and he said, hey, I want you to be on my team at this level. And he said, if you get this opportunity, this is what my friend said, work your way all the way up, and use this opportunity to your advantage.
Up a little bit?
So over 30 years, I worked my way all the way up.
Awesome. And you run the meet the you have your own part of the Olympia even, like the meet the athletes is.
So the meet and greet I started. That was something I saw at the Olympia, and I wanted it at the Arnold. I'm over all the pro events, and I help in all aspects. At the Arnold, we wear probably 7 to 10 different hats. So, hey Lloyd, we need an interview. Call somebody to get us an interview. Hey Lloyd, we need some more booths. So whatever it is, it's kind of like we all chip in and make the Arnold happen. And it takes 365 days to actually make the Arnold happen.
So you could legitimately say that you've probably helped and supported literally tens of thousands of IFBB pros. Because I mean, you get a couple of hundred a year now. Is that the sport's grown so much?
Yes.
I mean, that's a pretty awesome point to be in.
Yes, and one of the things that you actually mentioned when we were talking, like I never even noticed like the camaraderie that was in the industry that wasn't in the world. I really didn't notice that until you mentioned it the other day, where eventually I was invited in. I started meeting the athletes, and then everybody felt like a family.
Yeah.
Even in 91, 92, 93, 94, it was like a family. It didn't matter what race you were, it didn't matter who you were. If you were in, we all just kind of hung out together. Backstage, I mean, a lot of people didn't get to experience it, but backstage was like a family. We laughed, joked. When it was time to get on stage, then, we're in war. You know what I'm saying? We're battling.
Then the fist clenches.
Right, but backstage, it was excellent camaraderie coming up.
Mike, I got one question I want to ask you. So I know, obviously, one thing I respect about you, and I look at myself this way a little bit, but not at your level, obviously. Bodybuilding is cool, but there's also other fitness challenges. There's powerlifting, there's CrossFit. I know that you have had success in the powerlifting world as well. Yeah. And I'm surprised more athletes don't cross over between, I mean, everyone's super strong, and why not throw your hat in a different ring once in a while? I mean, so the one thing I definitely love asking people, what were you, squat, bench, dead, what were your best lifts in your career?
Okay. I'll tell you about that, and I'll tell you why later on if you care. But my best squat was 740, and that was in a meet. My best deadlift was 670, and my best bench was 430.
And what did you weigh when you did this? Were you 181 or?
I bounced back and forth. I was not a true 98, but I struggled for 81. So there was one time I competed at 181 as a bodybuilder, and then 2 weeks later I competed as a powerlifter, and then 2 weeks later I competed in a bodybuilding show. So I was dieting when I did that one. When I was never full 98, so usually I was late 80s, early 90s in terms of my body weight, but I had a specific purpose why I did powerlifting, and it actually turned out to benefit me in bodybuilding.
What was it?
Well, first of all, when I went in the military, if you are on a team, you get half a day off to focus on the team. So when I heard about the powerlifting team, I just started in bodybuilding. That was, got out of high school and went in the military. And I'm like, dude, I get half a day off? I am going on this powerlifting team. And while I was on the powerlifting team, I went in there as a first timer, but I was at the top of the team before the year ended. I was doing phenomenal squats, everything. So the military loved that. They used to put me in the military. If you're a great athlete or you do very well, you're on the papers. I got separate rations. I didn't have to eat in the mess hall. So that was my whole thing in the military.
Oh, that's so funny.
But
I wouldn't have thought of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but at the same time, I saw myself developing in a manner that was just amazing. And my logic, I understand exercise science a lot better now, but I said, if you say a bodybuilder when they train, the ideal rep range is somewhere between 8 and 12. Predominantly, most of their, if you're talking about hypertrophy, strength, and power, when they're put in the hypertrophy phase of their training. And I says, well, if I can use X amount of weight when I train in the phase at my current strength level, and then I get stronger, I got stronger muscles training in that same range, I'm going to get bigger muscles. That was my old school logic, and I'm telling you just like it is. And so what I did was, when I competed in powerlifting, and then when I'm ready, I just died down and do bodybuilding. And there were times when I danced back, because back then they used to have a powerlifting meet and a bodybuilding meet in the 70s at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So it was just an amazing experience, and it turned out to benefit me in bodybuilding. But for the majority of my career, I did both. Like you say, if you're not having a competition in bodybuilding, what do we want to call it, the off season or what? I competed in powerlifting.
That's cool, and especially how challenging that is. You said you were dieting for a show, and then you go to a meet, and a lot of people that haven't done that before know that it's difficult, especially the closer you get to the show, to have big lifts in the gym like that.
Well, I was also blessed with some. I'm so thankful for bodybuilding as a whole, because, when I went to Arizona, I was going to Arizona State, and they were like, oh man, we got a Mr. Universe that's going to the school. So everybody wanted to do research on me. They did biopsy, they were doing all these different things. My VO2 was 55, which for a power athlete, that was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, whoa. So what happened was they started monitoring me, and they were helping me and guiding me. So I didn't diet. I dieted at 5,000 calories per day compared to someone. So I did some things a little non-traditional to most bodybuilders, but it all just turned out to work to my advantage in the end.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, look, wait, you're a bigger dude, right? What was your best bench ever?
495 was the best pause rep that I got, and I was unassisted.
Okay, but what did you weigh? 250?
I was 260 when I did
Okay.
that. So that's,
which is awesome. But I gotta say this. So people can be good benchers. There are not anybody that can squat 700.
That's what I was about.
No.
That squat number in a powerlifting meet squat where you better get your ass all the way down.
So
that is unbelievable.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, my best friend growing up went and played in the NFL, and incredible athlete. And he was a center. Well, he played tackle in college, but talking about a guy that's 6'4", and I think at the time he was probably 340. And his squat was in the low 7s, and that was
and
like
blew everyone's mind,
big
right?
deal. So
Yeah.
you can think about somebody that was at
I was still stuck on that when you said that.
I know, that's a massive
Right, I'm still
squat.
stuck on that number. How much did you weigh?
Well, in the meet, I was probably about 196 at the max. I've never been a 198, and I had to just chuck it in just to get up to that weight. Because usually I competed at a lighter weight in bodybuilding. But you're talking about one of the events. You remember John Gamble, the strength coach?
Oh yeah, of course. Yes.
He was at my meet. We both lifted in that
Wow.
meet. You know, so it was
That's
back-
pretty cool.
Yeah, and Chuck
Yeah.
Braxton. I don't know if you this
I don't know
old
that
time.
name.
They were just phenomenal powerlifters. But I trained in a gym called the Iron Den back in when I was in the military, and Chuck Braxton was there. I get goosebumps just talking about him because he was, you know, these guys, they just, you talk about camaraderie, these guys, they just, oh man, this
That's
kid's
so
got
cool.
potential, let's,
You're in.
you know, and that's it. And the same thing for bodybuilding. My story is just the same way, you know.
Now it's interesting that your story is the powerlifting background and then the bodybuilding and competing, you know, simultaneously, you know, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because that does, and I want to know how close this overlaps or comes close to overlapping. Our good friend and someone we partner with on some products, Mike O'Hearn.
Yeah, I know
And,
Mike.
and
I
Mike
know. Yeah,
did the
yeah.
universe, and he went through the same channels as you did, and doing the powerlifting
Yeah.
and bodybuilding, which I think is really cool.
Right. Back in Mike's days, you know, because I mean, I knew Mike sometimes when we would go to LA for photo shoots, I'd see my goals and everything.
Right.
So I remember his whole process going back and forth in the sport. But, you know, I originally was introduced to bodybuilding, but when I got out of high school and went in the military, I told you, I had to take advantage of that opportunity. And so
Yeah,
I became a
free extra
powerlifter.
meal, yeah.
That's great.
But it was just, you know, it's amazing how it turned out.
Okay, so after you won the world championship,
Mhm.
you know, I'm familiar with your biography, and I don't know if you would feel, but like obviously winning the world championships is huge, and winning the Arnold Classic in 1990 is huge. And you had about a 4-year span in there that really is like you're on top of the. Maybe you're not winning every show, but you're on top of the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
And I remember at that point in life, I was actually in high school, middle school to high school. I graduated in 90, so you're a big year. And I remember seeing you in all the magazines. When you were at that pinpoint where you're one of the premier guys in the sport, were you getting like contract deals? I mean, I know you worked with Weider a little bit. How does you know how does that develop for a guy?
Well, what happened is, I mean, I had right there in Arizona, I had one supplement company. They offered me a contract, it was minimal. But then Weider came in and Weider said, at the time there was, you know, the WBF was trying to introduce bodybuilding
I remember that.
in their arena. And they made me a very
That was
impressive-
Vince McMahon for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
kids.
Did you ever go to the WBF?
No.
No,
They
I don't
made
know
me-
why I thought
no.
you did, but
They made me a very impressive offer, and Weider offered me less, but I took Weider's offer. And the reason why I took Weider's offer was, Weider says, I'm going to pay you this, and you can do whatever you want outside of that. The WBF says, I'm going to pay you this, but you can't do anything outside of that.
Vince owned all of those
Yeah,
athletes.
and
Yeah.
you know, no
All
disrespect.
the way up.
Yeah,
Now.
no disrespect to it, but you know, I do a guest appearance, and back then it's no, I don't know what the guys charge today. You know, I charge between $2,500 and $3,000. So my logic, I go on stage and I pose for 2.5
Lloyd's
to 3
laughing because they
minutes.
charge less today.
And,
Yeah, exactly.
Anti-inflation.
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing today.
Some of them don't get that now.
Well,
You
well
gotta-
I think it's probably. No, I'm sorry. I think there's so many more
'Cause he
people
was so
willing
elite.
to do it.
Yeah.
I was
And, like
That's
He was
what
so
they-
elite. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's a good rate.
Now I had an individual that introduced doing the managing for me, and you know, I started out at $1,500, and then there was a conflict of interest where I could utilize him as a manager, and then I got an attorney, and you know, she was just like, hey, you know, and so I charged, and you know, not only did I get that, but I brought pictures, I brought T-shirts. And so those additional items, if I was in the WBF, I would not have that ability. I mean, I remember one time I went to Japan, I had bags of, I got to the show, I posed, I came back, and they just bought it was like piranhas against clothing. And so for me, I thought it was more beneficial to go that route. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's one thing I always talk about. We don't have to get into it now, but I think the success that pro bodybuilding brings an athlete, isn't success. It's an opportunity for success. And if you're not doing, like you said, like finding, is it
Yeah.
clothing? Is it, you know, there's
Yeah.
probably 20 people in the history of bodybuilding that got rich off competing.
Uh-huh.
Maybe not even 20. But the opportunity that presents, and with the right mind, what you can
Yeah.
capitalize on, and we can, you know, towards the, you know, try to move chronologically,
Yeah,
right? So we
yeah,
can
yeah.
talk about how you're a successful
Mhm.
entrepreneur and trainer down here. So, like, how did it go with magazine covers back in the days? I mean, I know you were on a bunch of magazines.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the Weeder had Muscle and Fitness, Flex magazine. I think Flex launched in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
And it was Muscle and Fitness changed in the late '70s. The Muscle and Fitness name.
Yeah.
So you got some covers. I know you shared the one.
Yeah, I got some covers. I mean, there was one experience, and second international, win the world championships, come back, and Gary Stratton had won the nationals, and it was there. Okay, usually the guy that comes out of the nationals or one of those, they end up on a cover. And my only experience, I look at it and try to look at it as a businessman. But if you were to say my one unusual experience was when Joe was like, that black guy is not gonna sell bodybuilding magazines. So he put me on the cover with Gary Stridham, and they call us Knights of the Champion, KNIGHTS, Knights of the Champion.
Oh, wow.
And some people might say, hey, it ruffled my feather or whatever. My upbringing, I was just like, dude, I'm just gonna push you even harder. But then it turned around, Flex, they put me on the Flex magazine cover with Stridham. But then in Europe, I was on so many covers that it didn't really matter to me. And in the same long run, Joe Weeder gave me a contract. So I didn't really look, maybe some people would look at it and say, oh man, that was such a bad experience or whatever. I really didn't look at it that way. I'm like, dude, man, but then when they drug tested and when we went down the road, no disrespect to Stridham, I'm speaking as competitors.
Sure.
My career kept shooting, and he was out of the game, so it didn't really,
And he went over to.
He went that route.
Yes, he went to
WBF.
He was their number one guy.
Right.
And he had a nice. I thought he had a nice journey there. Yeah.
I was always a Gary Stridham fan as a kid.
Dude, man, the guy had a great physique.
And I'll tell you, I saw him that year that you and I were in FIBO. That was 2012. I saw him at FIBO, and he looked almost exactly the same.
Yeah, he did.
Holy
He
cow!
made him come back.
Yeah,
he did.
That mini comeback.
Exactly.
Yeah, Gary Stridham was definitely a great competitor. So, what about on the European tours you guys used to do? Everybody was cool, all the bodybuilders, they're shooting you around. I mean,
Man,
as a fan, that looked like the coolest part of pro
I gotta
bodybuilding.
tell you, it's like a bunch of, it was like this big family. When you go to like a Thanksgiving, that all these big people, because we were coming from different parts, not only of the world, but of the country in the United States, and we go to FIBO. And like they had these big booths, and I don't know what the numbers are, but back then you hear like 9,000 people are coming through today. And they put the stage up, and all of us, we're down onto the stage, and we're
you sent over some pictures. We'll put them up on
pumping up and helping out everybody. And then all of us would go up there and we'd have a blast. But then later on in the evening, we all go out to dinner, and then we also did tours. Because one of the nice things
the gym tours, you mean, right?
They would do tours in the gyms in this city. Like even when I went to Greece, Athens, for one of the Grand Prix tours, they would take you around the islands. They had like these. They were so nice to us.
That's
cool.
I tell you, did the athletes get paid for that part of it? Like, how does that? I've always wondered. This has nothing to do. I'm really just curious. Like,
no, we went there.
Is it just part of the experience?
If you're a top competitor, you get your expense paid to the event, right, to compete. Mm-hmm. But then after the competition, or sometimes, let's say for example, we have a show. Sometimes I go in a week early or whatever. Those people, they would be such amazing hosts. They would take us around and show us. I remember the girl I was dating, she was like, this was a dream. She was going to all the Greek islands. They were taking them around, and I'm there dieting my butt off and sitting there.
I've never heard a girl say she's happy to be dating a bodybuilder before, so that might be the one.
My girl back then, she said, as long as Mike's got food, he's all right.
So that's, and then, okay, so you had those great times, and then coming into the 1990 Arnold, what was your training strategy? Like, I know you've described it as the best shape of your career.
It was.
I mean, I've seen the pictures. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, did you just train, like, was it, what made you your best? Did you say, I'm going to train for a full year, no off-season? Did you say, I'm going to go back to my powerlifting roots and hit 760 on the squats again? Like,
I want to tell you, and you see my skin?
Yeah, man, I love it.
I mean, I love the journey, but I was right here in Arizona, I was training, actually me, JJ Marsh, and Jimmy Comerford, we all trained
Oh,
in
yeah.
the same gym.
I remember all those
I mean,
guys.
all of us went to the Ironman invitation. You talk about guys that, what's up, JJ, what's up? It
That's
was,
cool.
you know, we were all there, and it was just like this community of tearing things up. I was training with a girl, Tammy Briali, I don't know, she won the international, and another guy, another friend of mine, John Holland. You know, we were training back and forth, and I did powerlifting. Arizona State, they were like, you know, I let them ping pong, do whatever they want with me. I was training Arizona State, they were monitoring me with my nutrition and everything, giving me input there. And then one thing I did, and I know the science doesn't support it, and I don't care. I ingested a ton of MCT oil when I trained for that show.
Oh, wow.
And you know, I mean, I look at the research and it says whatever, but also I know when you diet real hard, you affect testosterone level if your body
Yes.
fat get down too low.
Yep.
Well, MCT is a medium chain fat. John Perillo had this whole thing about MCT oil, and I read all the material.
That's a great name to throw. Yeah.
And I decided I'm gonna start trying this MCT oil. Now, if you don't gradually let your body adapt to it, it comes to you like a
Diarrhea.
laxative.
Cha,
'Cause
cha,
I was drinking the straight MCT oil. So, you know, the lady, her name was Melinda Minor, who just kept feeding. I got up to 5,000 calories a day, and I was still getting lean, and I was
Wow.
training heavy. I never ever felt the
You were probably in some weird state of like ketosis with carbohydrates from that much MCT oil.
this
Yeah.
guy's just right on. So, you know, what I did was I increased my protein from, I've always done 1 gram per pound of body weight. I don't care, you know, and so 1 gram per pound of body weight, I was eating so much, I ate so much potatoes, sweet potatoes, till my palms turned orange. I was ingesting so much calories that there were times when I'd sometimes blend it up because I was just like,
Didn't want to eat anymore.
yeah, and I trained twice a day. So I'd get up in the morning, and you know, I know the data says, and I didn't do it for that. They said you don't have to fast when you do cardio. But in my game was, I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I did my cardio, I ate my breakfast, and then I go to the gym. So I do my cardio first at home, and I train, and my workouts are not very long. That's one thing. By 45 minutes, I mean, just pound the daylights out of it. But I train split routine, morning, go home, sleep, come back in the afternoon.
Basic split,
train.
chest tries, back buys.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And what happened was I trained twice a day, and nothing messed with my sleep.
What about?
I slept, I would say in the history, I made sure I slept a minimum of 8 hours a day.
That's good.
And then I take a power nap in the afternoon on top of that. And it all just came together.
What about cardio? So you got 2 hardcore intense workouts. Did you throw an hour on the stepper in there too?
I
or-
never did just such a long bout, but I did short bouts. I would do like sometimes split cardio morning and afternoon cardio, but never ever like just long bouts. And another thing, I used to run track and field when I was in high school. So I used to do sprints.
Mhm.
So like sprint, walk back, sprint,
Yep.
walk back.
Yeah.
And you know, everything just came. I mean, I logged everything. That's another thing. I could show you my conscious diet from when I just started out. It's a green folder. I still have it at my
That's
house.
really cool.
Yeah.
That's a pre-conscious diet because I logged every single thing, and I was just manipulating. I remember I had this girl. Her name was Nancy Novick, and she was a former gymnast. This girl used to take my body fat, and I didn't care as long as I have my stats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was very meticulous about stat. I look at lean mass to fat ratio, and so, you know, some people say let the mirror be your guide. The mirror is the guide on stage day, but if I dieted 20 weeks, and if you're dieting, and you're dieting too fast, and you start to lose lean body mass, how do you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Good
You
point.
don't know. And so I hear a lot of guys say this, and I'm like, well, if you log everything, you can always know. So if I see that I'm shifting or going too fast, I'm bumping. And if I see I get stale, I manipulate. So I increase the calories and then drop them.
Mhm.
And
Do you
start
think that there's so
fluctuating.
many like famous? You know, everyone's got a trainer these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Your first show ever, you got a trainer in your corner.
Right.
You think people hire these trainers because they don't want to do the hard work
You
that
know,
you did? log everything, look at it.
I
think about it.
personally, I don't want to discredit any trainers because I want to say there's something to be said for that guy that just wants to do his stuff and he doesn't want to think about it. He just want to do whatever. But me, I wanted to know what in the world was going on at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So I did all my logging, everything, and you know.
What was your degree in at Arizona?
Well, I went to Arizona for dietetics. When I turned pro, I stopped. And I got a surprising story for you. I'm a senior now at FAU in exercise science because I went
That's
back to
awesome.
school
Wow.
after everything was
Like
said
Rodney
and done.
Dangerfield, yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm still fascinated by the stuff, and you know when I
That's
meet
incredible.
and I just want to understand. It's not even about, you know.
Does anyone at FAU realize like who they're? Well, it gets a lot of virtual right now, unfortunately, right?
Yeah. But virtual actually worked to my advantage too because you know I have a business and I get a lot more credits. Last year I did 14 credits all online because
But I mean, do the kids know that you know?
Some of them do. I don't talk about it, but
Mhm.
after a while they're like, you know, they some of the professors do actually. I took some classes that, you know, like a former strength coach for the Panthers. He's a professor there at FAU, and you know, great rapport. So even at this stage of my life, I'm still like a sponge
That's awesome.
getting information. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome. Okay, so back to this Arnold for a second.
Mm.
I'm going to go down two paths right now, and I'm going to make you talk some dirt on people, whether you want to or not, because I know you're such a nice guy.
Yeah.
All right, it won't be that bad.
No.
So what'd you weigh when you won the Arnold?
I know I did probably about 196, 190, somewhere off there, 198.
Okay.
I never ever competed at 200 pounds.
So one topic I know you're not shy to talk about, this is a great time to introduce it.
Yeah.
I personally believe that if someone is starting off as a really gifted athlete,
Yeah.
and I do want to say it because not everybody could pull it off,
Right.
and has the work ethic and the time. You started training in the 70s.
Yeah.
I think there's no reason someone can't be 198 pounds of unreal solid muscle, win the biggest show in the world, and still maintain a drug-free lifestyle. I know that you have gone that path, and I really admire that a lot from you. So one, I mean, I think, you know, I know you should want to touch on, because it's a really point to be proud of.
Yeah.
The fact that you stayed drug-free to the highest level of the sports.
Right.
So that's my one question where you can talk a little bit about
Yeah.
it. But my other question is, if you were a 212 competitor right now with that 198 pound Arnold physique, how many Mr. Olympias would you have won?
Well, that's good.
I told you, Lloyd, I told you I was bringing the heat on these questions.
Yeah, this is
I probably
good.
would have done well, but I think, you know, when we look at the guys at 212, some of them are a little bit shorter and thicker. I gotta,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, so I would have to see, you would all be on the judges. Would I have clapped a couple of them or probably would have?
You'd be right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And especially now with, you know, even with all the different avenues they have, you know, the physique and, you know, there's a lot of possibilities there. I think it was just timing, you know?
Yeah.
You know, having that opportunity when I was there, it probably would have been a beautiful thing.
But Lloyd, how many champions has the Arnold had? Do you have the number offhand? It's got to be, because there were multiple winners. Can't be more than 15. I know you all were just on stage.
Yeah.
And the 30th, I think we was 15 of you? 16?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
15.
you know, forget about talking classic physique and stuff. To be one of 15 people who's won the biggest show, not to mention the world. You know, you can't have, you know, there's nothing to regret there. That's not that you said regret, but I mean, that's a pretty awesome accomplishment. And then the drug-free part on top of it. I know that's a big pillar of the Mike Ashley story.
Yeah, I know it's been a controversial, but I put it out there and I said, dude, there's a Muscle and Fitness, and I have a picture of it. I says, if you guys want to get off of your stuff and come against me, it says it right in the magazine, and it's got like these demons running in all different directions. I told him, I says, anybody, you could test me at any time, I give you $10,000 if you test me and I fail the drug test. No one ever came up.
Nobody did it.
So I'm like, shut your mouths now. You know, I gave you and I wasn't cocky about it. I was just like, you know, if you really want to say whether I'm drug free or not, test me.
Yeah.
You know, and it never happened.
Good point.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty awesome. I mean, you know, the interview's really about you, but I've been like a drug-free dude my whole life, and I still compete. I competed right up to November. I was my last drug-free show.
Yeah.
And I'm also a super hater. Like, I say that guy, you know, you're always angry with people that are better than you, but I've never felt that way towards you. I mean, your career, and I'm really not, I'm just joking, but like, you know, I've always really thought that you did great carrying that narrative without you know, it's not a shield. It's just part of your narrative.
Right.
And I always admired the way that you spoke about it. Sometimes you do have to brag and say, hey, put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And other
yeah.
times you just show up and win the Arnold.
Right,
You know,
right,
there's plenty of ways to handle your business in that
Well,
world.
I was never shy about it, and you know, I am not one to, because here's my thought. I don't care who you are. If you're at the elite level in bodybuilding, you earned it by hard work. There's no drug out there.
Right.
There's nothing that can put you at that level. So, you know, you never hear, like back when I was competing with Haney or all of those guys, none of them ever say, oh, Mike's not drug free. They're elite athletes. They know they earned it. You know, most of the people that would question it are people who have never really
The haters.
never
The haters.
That's the way it is.
But you're not gonna hear, you know, these top guys wasting their time about whether or not Mike Ashley is drug free. They don't, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
I just got just a really quick from Mike O'Hearn, a comment
Oh, yeah.
on our live. Tell Mike Ashley he's one of the 3 biggest influences of my career to stay natural.
Wow.
That's coming from
Thank you,
awesome.
Mike.
The top of that totem pole.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about conferencing Mike in, but as you can see, we're technology overload
Right.
as it is. I didn't want to ruin anything on Dennis's side of the room. So, okay, so Arnold's a great time. I mean, you probably had a couple good years in the sport. I know your career really culminated in 1994 when I bumped into you at
Yeah,
Gold's
yeah.
Gym on a commercial. I know
Yeah.
those were the days. But you were one of the first pros I ever met in person. And, you know, I was joking before. It's amazing how social media has changed things because now when you see a pro, you follow them on social, you know who their girlfriend is, you probably know what their last meal was because they posted that.
Right.
Back in the old days, you were just a guy I saw on a couple of magazine covers and I happened to recognize the face and you didn't have this kind of like feeling like you knew everybody like you do with social. And I remember going up to you. This is one of the reasons why I've always thought so highly of you.
Thank you.
I didn't know how to interrupt a pro, you know. First off, you have this stigma like, well, he's a pro bodybuilder, so his workout's got to be different than my workout because he's a pro and, you know, his bench pressing is different than my bench pressing. His curls go backwards. No, and I just like interrupted your workout, said hi, and you were like honestly incredibly gracious, and it was really cool. And it was one of those opportunities where you actually like seriously, what's it now? Almost embarrassed. What, 40 years later?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
30 years later, and I still remember that. And you know, one other thing I have to tell this anecdote. I don't know if you knew this guy. He was there the same day I met you. I can't describe him. He was an older gentleman, super tan, like, you know, that Florida tan that's like Crisco. And he was doing nose breakers with 2 plates on each side of the curl bar.
Wow.
And he said something to me and I said something to him and I was like, dude, you know, what's the secret? You know, how do you stay this strong? And he said, never get married.
Wow.
So I had two really good pieces of advice that
that's
day.
awesome.
Watching Mike Ashley train and that guy that told me to never get married.
You know, one thing I like to say in regards to you saying you come up to me and let me tell you, think about it. Even these guys today, they have an amazing opportunity. What would the sport be without fans?
Right.
What would this sport be? I remember going to Greece and this girl took off her jacket and she wants me to sign the inside of her jacket and I was like, I was flattered, I was touched that she asked me, and some people look at it like, you know, or the guy would come with his belt or whatever. I believe we should always take time for those individuals because they are what makes the sport great, you know? I mean, whether it's the followers on social media or the fans at the
I
show.
mean, look, those are the guys that, you
Yeah.
know, keep Lloyd's businesses
Yeah,
in place, you
absolutely.
know? I mean,
Yeah.
what would the Arnold be? It would still be a 9,000, I mean, he talked about FIBO being crazy with 9,000 people.
Wow.
How many of y'all bring to the Arnold every year?
200,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I remember the first time I met Lloyd, you know, he was helping with anything I needed, you know, and, you know, we developed a rapport from that. You know, we've developed a relationship from that, and it's just, I think it's such a beautiful journey if you really look at it with a positive mind and you just embrace all the positives about it, you know, definitely.
I want to make sure I'm missing any of my notes here. Well, this was in my notes. But what brought you to? I thought you were a Florida native because I met you so far back. You know, you told me you weren't. What brought you to Florida?
Actually, it's kind of funny. How I got into bodybuilding, I was at the bus stop going to high school, and this guy came up to me and he says, "Man, you got this whole thing about getting potential. I hear it in New York a lot. I was on the track team at the time, and my track coach started having me do strength training, and you know, so he really introduced me to it. And the guy said, "You got potential. I'm opening up a gym in Queens Village. You know, come check us out." they became my family. And, you know, until I went into the military, my first show, they taught me how to pose the whole 9 yards. So years gone by, we always kept in touch. They said, we're opening up a Gold's Gym in Florida.
Oh, wow.
I was living in Arizona.
Sounds right.
And, you know, after they stopped testing, you know, I didn't see my journey in bodybuilding. Because, you know, in the 90s, they stopped testing. And
Oh, yeah.
after the Arnold, and I was just like, so it's like, you know, I know you're passionate about nutrition and fitness and all of that. Do you want to come down here and run our nutrition program? And the Gold's Gym, back they had this program called Apex Fitness.
Oh, yeah, I remember
And
Apex.
nutrition
You have-
analysis.
you know
I
Apex,
know all
right?
about
Yeah.
Apex.
Nutrition analysis with Neil Spruce, and then he went to Apex Fitness, and that's how I moved to Florida.
Was that the Gold's on
The
commercial?
Gold's
that-
on commercial. That's
Oh,
now
right.
Zoo.
Now it's
Wow.
Zoo, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I ended up moving here.
So that was your home. That was like your not just your home gym. That was your home base. Like
Yeah, that was my home base.
How many
And
years were you in there?
Actually, 94. I didn't stay there very long because I ended up going off and opening my own gym and then my own studio.
Yeah.
And so, but you know, I stayed here for like 2-3 years and then I moved on.
Ah, cool. Yeah. So I was just lucky I got to meet you. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And then that kind of brings us to now. So you're here in Florida, finishing your degree after
Yeah.
a long
A
hiatus.
long journey,
Yeah.
man.
That's
but-
great.
And can I mention the place in Deerfield, or you know?
Oh yeah.
Safe. So why do you name it Safe Fitness? That's something I always. I
Okay.
mean, you gotta like you're the first bodybuilder to not throw their name on something.
Yeah, well,
Right?
well, one of the things is, you know, I will say I don't market specifically for bodybuilders.
Right.
My focus is really the general population. I always like to tinker in bodybuilding. So if a bodybuilder comes along, I'll be more than happy to help him. But I wanted to be, I call it SAY, Say Fitness, because say what? Say Fitness.
That's awesome.
You know, that's how I came up with the name. And, you know, it's just for the general population. You know, for the rates that we charge, it's no membership. The people only pay for personal training. So when they come in, they work with their trainer one-on-one. If they want to come in and do cardio, there's no hassle or anything.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's a little bit more exclusive place, and
Yeah.
you know, I love it. You know,
I love Deerfield Beach. I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have a great spot
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I would love to have a business like that. It's pretty
Right,
cool,
right.
pretty good setup. Wow, so quite a career for you, Mike.
Yes, yeah. And I'm one, you know, you talk about bodybuilding, I'm all over it because it all happened. Bodybuilding, I can tell you, every step of the way, bodybuilding has contributed a significant amount to the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, my first pro show, I bought the condo, one of the condos I sold, I bought the gym, you know.
That's
It's
cool.
just been all stories, and it all started with bodybuilding. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, look, obviously none of us have reached the level you've reached, but I really do believe, and I mean, Whitney and I are cut from the same cloth, that daily discipline of going to the gym really forms great life habits. I mean, I have
Absolutely.
3 kids. I try and instill the same thing into them. And, you know, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger line from Pumping Iron of rep by rep improvement. You know, every rep gets me. If you can apply that to your life, I mean, every phone call you make with a distributor in Kuwait,
Yep.
you know, every text you take after hours, you know, everybody you meet once and become personal friends with for years, it all adds up, and it really does build to a great legacy. And for us in the room, it all is attributed to the sport of bodybuilding.
You know, I give a lot of credit to Arnold because Arnold has done something that has influenced a lot of others. Think about it. A guy that come here that didn't know English very well, and he was breaking stones at one point to become the governor of California. It's a story that's,
It's amazing.
you know,
Married into the Kennedys.
it's a message that talks about if you really want something and you're disciplined, and the sport of bodybuilding is if you really want to be good at bodybuilding, you have to be disciplined to really meet at the elite level. So if you can diet like that for 20 weeks for a competition and go there year after year and win a championship, that discipline level, you take it, you apply it to business, you apply it to any aspect of your life, and it can make a significant difference. And Arnold showed a phenomenal example to a lot of bodybuilders. You know, you think about what he has done, and you know, so I'm the one that always applauds him. You know,
Yeah.
he set a great example out there.
Yeah, awesome. Before we wrap up, Lloyd, any sneak advance inside news on what's going to happen with the Arnold this year? Obviously, Whitney and I are not getting on a plane in 8 days to go to Columbus like we normally would be at this time of year, right?
Right.
Nothing. I don't want to make you admit anything that's
Right.
but
So basically,
the show must go on.
Right, the show must go on, but basically, you know, we want to have a full Arnold. So, you know, we have 200,000 people, you know, 22,000 athletes, and we have over 1,000 booths. So we really need the vaccination. We really need people to get vaccinated, I feel, to actually have a real Arnold, to have the big Arnold. And it's really up to our governor. Our governor is one of the strictest governors in the United States, and he's trying to keep everybody healthy. So I think we're looking towards the fall. So I think more people, I think they said like, what was it, 50 million people have been vaccinated or something like that. And
so fingers crossed, monitor Corona. And
yeah, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping
the old powerlifter fingers
yeah.
don't cross, right?
So I mean, I'm seeing that the Olympics is going to go on in July,
Yep.
and you know, other big events are starting to open up. Future big events are starting to open up. So we're hoping September in the fall would be good for us to have the Arnold. We have to prepare for it. It's probably going to be like, you can have it. Now everybody has to work 20 hours a day.
Yeah, because you're not going to find.
Yeah,
you're.
It's not going to be like the traditional. Let's start Saturday of the Arnold and work 365 days.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be like, okay, you can have it. Let's pull it together. You know.
How many?
Kind of like that.
I mean, from the guy who wins the men's bodybuilding down to the 6-year-old kid who takes 5th in fencing. How many athletes do you guys get a year at the show?
We're up to 22,000.
22,000 athletes.
22,000 athletes. The Olympics has like 12,000 athletes. We have 22,000. I mean, just in cheerleading alone, we have 4,000 athletes. Gymnastics, about 3,000 athletes.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have people from table tennis to come in, fencing. I mean, arm wrestling, powerlifting. I mean, here's what people don't realize, and I do want to say this being Black History Month is, everybody in Columbus you walk up to and that are black have never even heard of the Arnold. And I always try to invite people to the Arnold because it's for everyone. I mean, like I told you, the first one I went to in '89, it was amazing to me. I mean, I worked out, I was a manager at Bally's, you know, I was like in all of it. But it's something that we as Black Americans, we don't know about Arnold. We don't know what the Olympia is. We don't know the industry. We see the magazines when we walk in on the magazine rack and say, ooh, that guy's cool. But I'm trying to invite more people out to our events, you know.
Yeah.
If it's a local show, if it's the Arnold, if it's the Olympia, because we don't know. We don't know. Like, I would love to see a little kid that grew up in the neighborhood watch fencing and say, hey, one day I want to be a fencer because I was at the Arnold and I saw these great fencers. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a great story. Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to get more people. So I go out to the community, I talk to people and say, hey, come to the Arnold, come to the Arnold, come to the Arnold. Because it's not just bodybuilding. It's not just fitness. I mean, it's 85 events. And, you know, a lot of things I've never been exposed to growing up until I was a part of the Arnold.
Yeah, I never knew how many variations of table sports there were.
Well, yeah, now we got foosball. So that's actually fun to watch foosball because you think you know how to play.
You're right. Until you see somebody that's really good.
You play the 60-year-old guy that's kicking your butt.
I don't think I ever played foosball and wasn't drunk, so that might be one of the challenges for the Arnold. You know.
So that's what I'm saying. So this is a good opportunity. Thank you, Chris, for inviting me on. Because this is a good opportunity. Because, like I said, as a race, we don't know about these
foosball.
We don't know about a lot.
Foosball really is reserved for white college.
Well,
so you can just say.
I played that. But like I said,
I've never seen a black character on the foosball team.
I have.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
I've actually never even played
foosball. So like I said, we don't know about our industry. We don't even know how great it is. We don't know about the relationships that you get.
Yeah.
The relationships because, you know, Mr. Lormer that's put on the Arnold, he's 94. And he has the best relationships I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, you always say that.
He has the deepest, I mean, he gets 1,700 people to volunteer for him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me who can get 1,700 people to say, hey, I'll volunteer for a weekend.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, so like I said, that's the biggest thing. My takeaway out of the sport is having these relationships that I've built over the 31 years is deep, good relationships where everywhere you go, it feels like a family. Out of the country, when you go to
you're in FIBO. I mean, that was mind blowing to me.
When I go to all these other countries, we're family, and you don't see that in a lot of industries. So,
Yeah, eating ostrich at that weird diner in Essen before they moved it to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, to kind of wrap things up, you know, we have two huge shows in bodybuilding, the Olympia and the Arnold.
Right.
And Mike and I were reminiscing on the way in. I think it's probably about a 50-50 split along ethnicity lines, you know, and even like our good friend Kamal, who's a Middle Eastern guy.
Yeah.
There's no boundary to who could become Mr. Olympia or win the Arnold. And a lot of people like to say that about their sport, but you could look back at the history of bodybuilding all the way from our second Mr. Olympia was an African American guy, Ronnie Coleman with an 8-year run, you know, Phil Heath.
Lee Haney.
Lee Haney,
Yeah.
my favorite bodybuilder of all time, next to Jay, of course.
Right.
And Mike Ashley now. But I mean, yeah, it's really great. And I mean, listen, in a world where racial integration wasn't even legally established until 1969, the fact that our sport has really been on the foreground. I mean, look, bodybuilders get a bad rap about a lot of this. They're grouchy. They steal your machines at the gym. But one thing we've always done right is we've proven we can get along to the point where, you know, you could look up to somebody who's a couple years ahead of you and meet them in a gym, and honestly, it influences them down the road. And Mike, I really congratulate you on a great career.
Thank you.
And not just a great career, but great success after bodybuilding. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of competitors. And I'm really grateful that you guys came in and shared some of your stories with
It was a
Whitney.
pleasure. Definitely
Yeah.
was. Right.
So. All right, turn those cameras off. I think that's it.
Good stuff.